Be recording this and it will be going out on YouTube, the council's YouTube page. So, and a welcome to a lot of members who are not part of this committee and who have been here before, and some new members as well who've come along. It's nice to see you.
Look at the one at the back there, it's got a phone.
It's all right. We'll wait till Chris manages to get it all silent. Okay, moving on. Do we have apologies for absence?
Here, apologies from Councillor Lloyd and from Councillor McIntosh and from Councillor Logan, who is substituted by Councillor Atkin. Let's do a quick road call.
There's also apologies from Councillor Campbell-Sanker.
Thank you. Councillor Baird.
Present.
We're here. Councillor Cameron.
Michael?
Sammy Cameron, sorry.
I'm sorry, but you.
And you. Christy. Online.
He's online.
Yeah.
You, Councillor Fraser. No, Councillor Green.
Present.
Councillor Hendry. Present. Jarvie.
Afternoon, present.
Thank
Afternoon,
you.
Barbara.
Councillor Jones.
Present.
Councillor Mackenzie.
Online.
Here.
Councillor McPherson. Councillor MacDonald.
Present.
Councillor Robertson. Yeah. Councillor Saggers.
Here. Present.
Mr. Gibson.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. Stewart.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest? No, everybody's interested. Good. Moving on to item 3, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. Members are asked to note the minutes of the meeting held on the 20th of August. Are you happy so to do?
Yeah.
And they were approved already at council on the 18th of September. Thanks very much. And we're straight on to item number 4, which is the Foods and Schools project. Sheila, over to you, sir.
Chair. Good afternoon, members. So this is some feedback for you about our Food and Schools project, and we're very grateful to the guidance and advice you gave us at our last session regarding this. We put careful thought into crafting the questionnaires, and we took a bit of time to do that, and that paid off. We actually identified 8 different stakeholder groups who got slightly different questionnaires. Not everybody got the same questionnaire. We tailored it to the group that we were engaging with. And from that, we got 5,009 responses, which was absolutely fantastic. We were really, really pleased. Got responses from 100% of secondary and special schools, and from our primary schools, 95.6% responded, which is tremendous for any survey. I don't think there's many surveys that we do where we get those kinds of responses.
Bit of bug in not getting out to play such a disability.
The surveys explored different satisfaction levels on menu preferences, healthiness, perceptions of healthiness, otherwise, barriers to meal uptake, and food waste concerns. And the key findings from the responses we received is that there is broad support for the principles of healthy eating, universal meal provision. There's clear strengths emerged regarding the friendliness of our catering staff. That came through really, really strongly, how helpful they are and how knowledgeable they are, and the importance of that to enhancing the dining experience and encouraging people to go for school meals, particularly in the younger pupils. There's a strong desire for simpler, more traditional meals, and there were concerns about portion sizes, especially for older pupils. There just portion sizes weren't satisfying their appetite. Operational considerations were also highlighted, such as resource deployment and managing supply chains, and the need for better communication with families and involving our pupils in menu design. There was also a shared recognition that improving the dining environment could enhance uptake and reduce waste. There was a number of cross-cutting themes, menu suitability and food quality, that came up quite strongly across the different respondent stakeholder types, across the 8 different surveys. And some of the supporting statements around that were kids like normal old-fashioned food, The food is bland and mushy. I think that there should be more to actually take on board what the children actually want to eat. Portion sizes and value for money was another cross-cutting theme, and a mismatch in portions. So the portion's too big for our younger pupils, but not big enough for our older pupils. And how do we get that balance right? Bearing in mind, sitting behind all of this and underpinning everything we do within our catering services, there is Scottish Government guidance that we're working to all of the time. There's also some concerns amongst parents about the value that they were receiving. Some parents felt that the cost of school meals didn't reflect the quality or the quantity provided, leading to some to prefer packed lunches or go out with the school. And some supporting statements around that is my P7 is quite a small eater, but finds the portion far too small, even for her. Either reduce the cost of the lunches for the small amount they receive or increase the portion size. Dining experience, that came up quite a lot as well, as you'd expect. And that was also positive, positive interactions with the staff and the friendliness of our staff, but also the challenges around our dining rooms and our dining halls or dining spaces, as they might be in many schools. They were noisy, they were rushed. There's crowded dining rooms that discouraged people from sitting and having a meal and enjoying a conversation around that meal and making it an event rather than something they just have to get through to get on to whatever they're doing next. Food waste and sustainability. This was really interesting because this again came through very strongly across the different stakeholders and the level of waste that's been generated. And our catering staff associated with that and our school staff reported that there's quite a lot of waste in the dining hall. And that was down to a number of issues, often due to portion sizes, dislike of certain foods, or being forced to take unwanted food. Sustainability was another issue raised with us around food waste and the need to educate our school pupils around environmental issues. Communication and engagement. This was really interesting because what some parents were saying to us is we're not clear on how to interpret the menus that have been given to us, and then when we're trying to discuss them with our children, we're not sure how to interpret them and bring that to our children. Also, how can we become more engaged? What choices were given to our children when they go to school? Were some operational and extended considerations that did come out through the surveys, and they were about resource deployments. That was obviously coming from within our own catering teams. The supply chain management and how do we do that? And bearing in mind, this is a huge challenge, the supply chain, just given the whole geography that we're trying to cover or we have to cover in Highland, and also the external competition. And that was coming from shops and food vans nearby schools. And is there anything we can do to try and encourage pupils to stay in school and take the school meals available to them? Health education came through as well, which was really interesting. So it wasn't just about what we're putting on people's plates, but people understanding and our pupils understanding what impact that has on their health and how by taking a school meal, that's a healthier option of maybe going and buying a burger, for example, and sweets or whatever it would be. Some specific insights from pupils was the value-friendly staff that we have, that they value the friendly staff we have, but they want a bit more choice, not giving them the choices that they're looking for. Our elected members recognised the menu choice and dining environment as top barriers to school take-up, and they did support that the improvement in communication and food education would actually help with this. So the report's before you. We're more than happy to take any questions you have, members, and I'd also say, with the Chair's permission, we'd like to take back regular updates to you regarding the project.
Yes, definitely. I have a comment or two to make on that generally across the board for each of the items that are on the redesign board's agenda today, but I'll reserve them until the end.
The question. Excellent survey and good questions. The response to it, but having spoken to a pupil, and I've got 4 of them after school meals. One will not have some with a vertical. One of them eats them every day. One of them will do it when somebody likes, and the other one's variable. So they're all different, all extremely different, 2 different families. But last night, having a discussion about school meals in preparation for today, I was asked, why don't we get nights? And that response that I went back was, well, it might be difficult if you don't sit down. Do you sit down? Or do you sit down to have your meal? No, I usually stand. Okay, so how do you manage the knife and fork? I'll stand. I'll hold your thing together. So what do you do? I mean, they don't get nice because Morphin checked with hers as well and she discovered no, actually they don't get nice. The portions are variable, so sometimes they are very filling, other times they're not. And that's going with his favourite choice to yesterday. And written this down, but I have to. Oh, do we use full cost recovery on the meals, or are they subsidised? And burgers have a bad press. If they're made with good quality products, they're not so bad. And if that's what they'll eat, well, why not? That would be my comments. Thanks.
Okay, does anybody else? Sarah?
Thanks for all the work that's done on this. Obviously, I know I'm substitution day, but food in schools and food and behaviour is a big topic of mine. The one thing I think is that the 10-point plan is great, but the other thing that needs to be, I think, in the school culture, because we're trying to change the culture here around food, with education, is the whole design of the school day, so that there's time for children to eat. And I think it's the timetable and the time rush that's a lot of the kind of push factor away from wanting to be, you know, this kind of grab and go culture, which I think is not particularly healthy. And how the timetable works just in very small ways can have a huge impact on, you know, whether children are hungry and can learn. And it's not just the lunch, it's the breaks, break time, just having that kind of extra 5 minutes. I think as head teachers could look at making food and actually the joy of eating and sharing food with your friends as a really important part of education. It's not just kind of filling, you know, fuel you have to get so you can be in a classroom by a certain time. So, I mean, I think that is obviously a much bigger thing. But I think if we don't do that, we're not going to get this, because waste, litter, all of it is all connected, isn't it?
Yes.
And you know, if you want to do sport at lunchtime, you kind of like want to shove a bit of piece from mouth and run out to the playing field. It's very difficult to fit the wider education of children, which this is part, in if you haven't got structure in the day to do it. But I just kind of wondered if that could be, there's a bigger thing to ask. Weaved in would be brilliant, but other amazing work and really thoughtful and survey. Done. Brilliant.
Okay, I'm going to go to Barbara next. She's actually the councillor on the working group. Barbara?
Oh, Raymond, yeah, the feedback's really good and fantastic. Interaction rate from the kids, that's really good. It's a shame that there's still waste, and we're teaching our kids, you know, about you know, waste all the time and recycle all the time. It's would self-service reduce the waste, and how often are kids offered seconds? You know, if everyone's had some, right, who wants seconds to eat up that waste rather than the dash and go? And I agree with Sarah, the environment, the eating environment is, you know, there isn't enough space. It's clattery, it's echoey, it's noisy. I think we need to look at acoustics in canteens to cut down the echoes and the noise. And neurodivergent children find that a really difficult environment to eat in, to sit in. It's stressful because it's so echoey, because most of the canteens double up as the gym, and it's got the high ceiling and the walls with nothing on. So I don't know, you know, you get these acoustic boards that reduce that echo and that noise, just to make it a sociable experience. When you're eating a meal at home with your kids, you're sitting chatting, you're digesting your food better, you're more likely to have seconds, more likely to finish what's on your plate if you're sitting in a pleasant surrounding. So just those bits. Maybe be nice to trial the acoustics in a school where kids are saying it's noisy. Maybe see if that works, if they actually sit in there longer, and if the food waste is reduced as well, which was one of the target things, was reduction of food waste. So I'd rather see it be eaten or handed home, you know, like take the fruit home. Do all schools do the fruit bowls for kids to help themselves coming into school and going out to school? I've seen it in there and it's really nice, actually. You know, whether they eat it at break time or on the way home is neither here nor there. It's a healthy bit of fruit, but better than that going to waste, because there's fruit targets as well that, you know, we're putting it there, but they're not eating it. So it'd be good to encourage them to eat it. Okay. Thank you though for the report and getting great interaction from the kids.
Thanks, Barbara. John? John, are you coming in?
Yeah, okay, thanks for that. I think what we've got to recognise is that the school environments differ so greatly, because as we know, we've got some schools that are very large and we've got other schools where young people, there might only be 3 or 4 and maybe they haven't even got a dedicated space for eating. So I think that's really important. But what is really crucial in all of this is getting the feedback from our young people. And again, I think it's been highlighted, you know, the waste issue. At times, the waste issue is down to basically time. And certainly from experience, I know that if schools are able to have split dinner times or dinner breaks, that can happen. But as Barbara said, very often the gym hall is also the dining hall. Although now when we build schools, we make sure there are separate spaces for dining and for PE. But I think the really crucial point is that it should be a social experience as well. That's what we do in early learning and childcare. ELC, the kids are really encouraged to make their eating times a social experience, interact with their peers and with the staff. And I think somebody said that, you know, the eating environment at home. I think if you did a survey, you'd find that the eating environment at home is not sitting round a table and people talking to their kids and having a meal. It's dad on his phone, mum on her phone, kids on their phone, somebody watching TV. You know, the environment has changed so much and we need to recognise that. And I suppose that's why when we're looking at school meals and dining experiences, we definitely need to try and make them social experience. So there is interaction between staff and pupils and pupils and pupils, because as we know, everybody's saying that young people are not socialising enough now. They're too busy with their devices.
Thanks, John. Richard, was it yourself that was wanting to come in? Or was it Chris?
No.
No, it's Chris.
Well, thank you for letting me speak to the committee of which
You need to raise your voice, Chris.
I was saying thank you so much for letting me speak to a committee of which I'm not a member. Thank you very much for the paper. Because I'm sitting at the back, I couldn't hear all of the presentation, but I have read the paper and it's very interesting and I like it quite a lot. But there is one thing I want to add. It's a message which probably you won't really want to hear, but you'd better. I'm just back from the European Public Health Conference in Helsinki. And there's a concern which was discussed, particularly from Scandinavian countries. I think we all in this room know that eating red meat, whether it's pig or sheep or cow, is a risk factor now for several cancers: rectum, colon, pancreas, breast, and prostate. And people will continue to eat meat despite the risk, just as they smoked despite the risk. But the question is, what about children, particularly in relation to school meals? The question is it appropriate or ethical to provide meat routinely in school meals without informing the parents of the risk and giving them the option to take their children away from such meals? And indeed, if we don't, are we not inviting some parents in the future to try to sue the council for feeding children with cancer promoting substances. Just as in England, there's a case going on where a lot of women are taking talcum producers to court because of the asbestos lines in it. It's just a very just a consideration that we all ought to think about. And I don't know what the answer is immediately. I'd also in passing point out that there are two other committees with obvious interests in this: health and social care and climate change. But anyway, that's the main point that I wanted to make.
Thanks very much, Chris. Although, and understanding the point that you're saying there just now, I would imagine that the council would rely a lot on government legislation and government direction and that, because it is being discussed at places like where you've visited there just now. It's obviously at that level of the agenda that it is being discussed. So I would imagine that governments would land up shaping legislation by which local authorities could take considerations forward. Michael.
Thanks, Chair. Sheila, maybe I can the obvious question, but are all school meals pre-ordered? If you think about certain dinners you go to, especially big numbers, you're asked to pre-order. If you think you got your order in for the week before, for the following week, which is not too much, it would certainly cut down on food waste. They could get what they want. You could do small portions of each. Would be a sensible thing.
Thanks, Michael. Russell.
This probably won't tie in very well with what Chris has just said, but I did wonder when the report's really good, Sheila, thank you. Talking about fresh local ingredients, there's so many estates and round about us in the Highlands where we live now who have been forced to cut their deer numbers, some of them drastically, and that's going to go on and on and on. You know, and Nature Scotland, some of these bodies are saying that some of the carcasses should just be left on the hill, which I find abhorrent. I think that, you know, it's good food, and do we have a tie-in with some of these estates? I mean, Trish made a good point about burgers get a bad rep, but if it's good quality burgers, I mean, venison burgers, for instance, you know, is there a tie-in there? I mean, we should have an endless supply of venison in the Highlands.
Thanks, Russell. John.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Yeah, very interesting report, and I enjoyed reading about the surveys. It's unfortunate that the members' data set is so unreliable because of such a small sample size. But there seems to be a tension, and I wondered if you could just try and expand about what was meant by menu choice, because if you look at what people were favouring, cheese and tomato pizza and sausage rolls, do they mean that they want that more times on the menu than it actually is, or does it mean that they want a broader spectrum of items on the menu? It can be interpreted both ways. I just wondered whether you've got to the bottom of that.
I think you'll see it. I think you'll see it at the bottom, bottom of the same similar scale. The amount of kids that are actually saying they actually do not like veggie curry, veggie this, veggie that, veggie the next thing. You can virtually balance. If you look at the graphs, you virtually balance them off one against the other with what is actually their like and what is actually not their like. It's not, they're not just telling you what they like, they actually tell you what they don't want as well. Trish.
Yeah, just to come back on some of the points that was there. At the moment, yes, these meats are being regarded as carcinogenic, but I'd just like to remind everybody that PFAS is in everything. It's in the water we drink, it's in the vegetables because it's in the ground. So these are carcinogenic as well. So there's a never-ending supply of things that are going to cause cancers. And as for pre-ordering, fantastic idea. But I bet you anything half of them have forgotten what they ordered by the time they get there. And as to the same thing on the menu all the time, well, I just look to the school meals that are provided for the council when we've had lentil soup for about 4 or 5 times in a row. Last 2 weeks.
So, what is the matter with lentil soup?
There is.
No, don't answer that question, by the way. Barbara, appreciate your comments, and I'm sure Russell will as well, given the fact that you're supporting what he's saying. But let's try not to hog up the chat facility with just comments. Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's an excellent report as well. This is the first time I've read it. I just look at food waste, and I'm not sure what the food waste is, whether it's food waste that's left on the servery and therefore is ditched after it, or whether it's food waste by monitoring what's been scraped into the bin afterwards, because that's gives you a lot of indication of where we are with the menus, etc. I'm all for healthy eating, but having been in the military for a long time and they pushed healthy eating, it didn't really work that well for an awful lot of units. Some units it worked really well, but there's no point in having healthy eating if the pupils don't eat it. And there's nothing more unhealthy than being hungry. So I think that each school, there's no one size fits all. Each school has to adapt to the people they've got in front of them, and people come from different demographics, and therefore the menus have to be altered to comply with that. And I'd rather a child has a beef burger every day or a piece of pizza or something like that, his belly's hungry, he's got the carbohydrates in there, than having really healthy pasta, rice sort of things that they don't even see at home, some of these children. So it needs to be adapted to them. I know certainly at the army, if you had liver, broad beans and boiled potatoes on the hot plate, you're never going to run out. So, very healthy, but it does change minds. So just leave it there. Thank you.
And of course, the fitness of the different squads was nothing to do with which one was busier and which one had the greater tasks. Never mind the mention that they ate.
We could talk for hours.
Of course, you could. Kirsty, det går det så här en line eller gör green.
Hello, Lloyd. Hi there, folks, and thank you for giving me the chance to actually speak. I'm not part of this committee. I am just along the corridor, just listening in. But I just wanted to comment on the inclusion of red meat within schools. Brassey Primary School had an absolute battle to get through the red tape to be allowed to use locally sourced venison. I will add the caveat, I was part of the groups that actually go out and do the stocking, so that they could actually have it within the meals for the school, for the primary school pupils. So it would be really good to know what can be done to improve access to local sources for procurement. They also had that challenge for getting locally grown vegetables and things with the Walled Garden project as well. So they are trying to do things. Again, yes, it's a red meat, but it is entirely organic. So it would be nice to see what can be done and is being done to kind of improve that and change that.
Lovely. Thank you very much for that, and thank you very much for everybody's reflections. Have I missed anybody out? Yeah, Chris.
Just in terms of food waste, just to note, one of my local primary schools at Cannon has now bought itself a waste composter, which get rid of the problem of preparing food which is not used, but it doesn't at least mean there isn't food going to the waste stream. And if that's something which could be encouraged to others, they've done it through swing money and parental collection.
Russell, you want to come back in?
Just one wee point, sorry, just the idea that if we were providing meat that we might get sued for it, just for information. There's a group of parents not far over the hill from us, but in North Perthshire, who are at the moment actively trying to take action against North Perthshire Council because they have meat-free days. Their children are going to schools sometimes 3 times a week and more, and there's not a meat option in the menu, and they're trying to take action against them.
If you damned if you do, damned if you don't. And I remember the days as well, some time ago, where the big topic of that, the big topic of the day at that point was meat, and it was Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD, mad cow disease, and then government legislation and the threat of this coming in at that time. So thanks for everybody's contributions. Sheila, would you like to reflect on everything that you've heard there?
Thank you so much for your feedback. It's absolutely fantastic. In my opinion, my team has been going crazy with all the answers to you all. So thank you to the team for helping me in the back end. Full cost recovery, we don't do full cost recovery. We recover about 50% cost, the actual cost. And it is something we are looking at as part of this project. If we were to charge the full cost, I think it would have a downward rate, which is quite the opposite of what we're trying to do here. In terms of making the school meals part of the school day, we have discussed that with one head teacher when we were actually out visiting a school, and we had an absolutely fantastic, inspiring conversation with 2 senior pupils who were very engaged in this project and gave us lots of real insights into what it's like to have school meals. And when we were talking about timetabling and could you move the timetable to cater better for school meals, the head teacher was very correct in saying to us, well, okay then, here's your school day, here's everything we have to achieve through the curriculum, and here's everything else we have to do. So I think it's very difficult for head teachers to be re-timetabling, but this is a conversation we have commenced, but absolutely take on board the point about it being incorporated into the school day. Self-service, it really goes school by school, but in general terms, we don't do self-service. Although when we visited the school that day, we did talk to the school pupils about, you know, would it encourage you to maybe stay in school if we had vending machines where you could actually self-serve, and they thought that would be a good idea, but you'd have to be careful what you put into the vending machines. So there is something we can do, but it's not generally done self-service. School acoustics, that is something that comes up time and time again. Your point about, you know, can you put boarding on is possibly something that could be looked at, but we just need to be careful in this project that we don't start going down different routes and we stick to the core purpose of this project. Fruit bowls, there are fruit bowls in school supported by the Scottish Government, and children are encouraged to eat fruit, and some take and some don't, and some take more than one. Absolutely great. The social experience picked up by Councillor Finlayson, absolutely right, that's what's came through from the surveys. Point about red meat, the Scottish Government guidelines at the moment is that we are allowed to provide 125 grams of red and processed meat per week. So there are limits to the amount of red meat and processed meat that you can give. But as Councillor Bremner said, we are guided by Scottish Government guidelines, and we very much work to those guidelines in everything that we do. The comment, Councillor Jones, about deer and venison, you're making me hungry. One of my favourite meats, venison. There are enforced procurement rules, but that is something that we can under catering colleagues. They are actually, you may recall, we had an excellent butcher supplying us for many years, and we lost that contract, so they didn't tender, but the contract was renewed. And our catering team is working really hard to look at how they're now re-tendering these contracts, so they're putting them into smaller job lots, if you like, so they're more area based than Highland wide, in the hope that we can attract more local suppliers to the Highland Council. In terms of menu choice, our interpretation of what pupils and parents and also our teachers were saying back to us, Councillor Edmonds, they want more traditional meals, they want a broader range of food, but more traditional food on the menu. So it wasn't about having sausage rolls more often every day of the week, if you like. It was about having your mince and potatoes and your stews and what we ate traditionally as children is looking for. Because that's what they're eating at home, and it's closer to what the general diets are. We do understand with our children who don't have good nutritious food with that home. On food waste, Councillor MacDonald, it's the food that's scraped into the bin that we're counting there. Any food that is left over from the catering, that is packaged up and that is reused, either through the school or to families who are identified as it would be helpful to give them some food, extra food. And I'd just like to highlight, Canusey High School have launched, just in case you're not aware, Canusey High School have launched a pilot just now looking at reusable containers. And I've had a really good discussion with the head teacher there, Gavin Murphy, who's got the vision for this, very visionary, and the pupils have completely bought into this. They are reconsidering the containers that they're using there because they're having difficulty scraping the food off the containers that they've trialled initially. But that's been a really successful pilot, and they're going to continue with that pilot. So there's a lot happening around food, lots of interest in food, and lots of different aspects to food. What we need to do with this project is ensure that we don't go off piste and we don't get down avenues, and then we're not delivering on this. Great to have your feedback. I hope I've answered all the questions that were asked.
Just pre-orders, what's?
Pre-orders, sorry.
Okay.
We don't tend to do pre-orders in secondary schools. We don't do pre-orders. If you recall, many years ago, we did do pre-orders, and pupils didn't like the pre-ordering because it meant they didn't know what they wanted to eat at that particular time, and they'd rather choose at the time.
They use the data though to assess. You pre-order in the morning in primary,
Yes.
so that they've got an idea of, yeah.
Okay. Everybody had their say on that? Sure. Sheila found that really interesting. All the feedback that you gave there just now. Thanks very much for that. We'll move on to the next item, which is my council. And John's going to lead on that. Thank you very much, Sheila.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, members. Alison Clark would have been here presenting, but she gives no apologies today. She's not available.
You can fire me tomorrow. Can we agree the recommendations on item number 4?
Okay.
Thank you, Trish, for them. Okay, let's move on now. Thank you.
So my council programme remains at green status. So we had a programme board a couple of weeks ago, and just to remind you, the programme board is chaired by Alan Gunn. Councillors Henry and Boyd on that board. So it's a very active group where we get some good input from everyone involved. So quick update then on the 3 projects. So project number 1, which is the customer contact strategy. This really is its final stages. The services have been engaged with, and we've got service standards for all of the different delivery areas have been agreed. The intention is to publish those on the new website. So it's a bit of a double launch really of the service standard on the website is planned. It's been agreed that training on the customer contact strategy will be one of the mandatory training courses tracked through the trainees system. So that project very much in its closing phase. That doesn't mean that we won't be doing tracking the training and monitoring the project 3, which is my Highland project. So this is the key focus that is around giving online access to council tax accounts. So the software that was identified for delivering that procurement has happened. We've got the software, so we're now very much in the phase of planning for implementation. It is quite a complex thing. We do need to make sure that so security and ensuring that the right access to the right information is absolutely fundamental in this. So we've got to get that right. So that's very much now planning for implementation. Then go on to project 4, which is the new website. So this is now very much at a key stage in that project, with a significant amount of work that's been carried out. We split the pages into 4 sets of based on the traffic to the website. So the highest traffic content, 99% of that has now been rewritten and into the new format and is on the new web platform. The low traffic content, we're progressing rapidly with that. There's over 60% of that is complete. The focus now is on making sure that everything fits together. So it's not just the individual page content, making sure that the navigation works, that the whole structure of the website works. So that's what we're testing at the moment. It was at the last board. We had a number of members volunteer to help with that testing. If you haven't been contacted yet, you will be very soon. We are looking for that input. So a lot of really good work's been happening there. The expectation is that by the end of December, vast bulk of that content and testing will have been completed, which was as we expected. However, we did make a decision at the last board that we would not look to go live with the website at the end of December for a number of reasons. Firstly, you need a break. They have been working very hard on this, and go live is a time when we want to make sure we've got all the right people there ready to deal with any issues if there are any. Also, there's a good chance that going live just at Christmas time is not the best time. We're not going to get the best publicity around it. So bearing in mind the access to our team and also supplier support, we've settled the date of 17th of February will be the go live. So that does give us a bit of extra time just to ensure that everything is working, that we've got everything properly tested. We are, I think it's in the diary now, going to have a workshop at the end of January, 29th of January, where we'll be able to go through a lot of, well, really, it will be the website ready to go live at that point. So we're going to walk you through that and show you the, not just the content, but also hopefully recognize look and feel of it is a huge improvement. The navigation is a huge improvement. We'll be able to find information and get the information, it will be up to date. And then the final bit of it is we now have our user group set up. This meeting coming up a couple of weeks' time. That has got key people from across all the services. The idea is that we will be actually holding everyone to account, that we're sticking to the standards that we're going to go live with, that we will monitor how up-to-date information is, we'll monitor things like accessibility, get regular feedback, so we'll have a mechanism for continually updating the website. So it's been the last month in particular, it's been a very busy time to answer any questions on that.
Okay, we have hands up straight away. Michael, I'll come to you and then I'll come to you, Jackie.
Yes, thank you, John, for that report. I still have problems with people on the customer contact that are waiting on the line for far too long. Have you got any information as to lost calls? You know, people that have gone on a sort of statistic that can tell you, well, people have gone on 10 minutes, can't wait any longer, come off, anything like that. But I know it's very annoying to a lot of customers who just go fed up and they come to the counsellors. We've all had it, and they want their information put to by the counsellor rather than wait on the line.
So I think on this one, we're actually looking to reflect on what the improvement is going to be, other than what the issue is, because I think that we're well aware of a lot of the issues over the period of time. That's why the My Council programme is in place.
Yeah.
So it's more about what is going to be in place so that we actually don't have these lost calls.
Yeah.
And that we know that there is a system that is providing for following up to closure through the new My Council programme.
Yeah.
Jackie.
Yeah, just to comment really, I want to support the officers involved in the new launch date of the 17th of February. It makes no sense to try and do it in December right on top of Christmas. We need to make sure everyone's healthy and they've had a rest and they're ready to go. And also the suppliers for the website, they're going to be all in place and they've allocated this time as well. I encourage everyone to come along and have a go at the website and try and break it if they can, because that gives a few weeks sort of snagging time in January. But I think what's really important as well is then just over 3 years since this project was launched. And it's really important to note that it stayed within budget, which is fantastic. You know, it's been really complex. Other things have come along and they've managed to stay in budget. So I just wanted to make everyone.
You make it sound as though council hardly ever managed with it. I have no idea where you've got that from. Sarah?
Can I add to that? That's, that's really, I wouldn't have known that, Jack, if you hadn't said. So officers shout when we've got brownie points, it's matters. That's really it's over 3 years. That's a really
so involved. Really. It's grown arms and legs.
And these things can always, there's always banana skins, isn't there? And things that you don't know about that might come and cost a lot of money. So
yeah, they've been fabulous. They've done really well.
Is there any other points from anybody else? Yes, Richard.
Oh, it's just follow what Jackie was saying there about trying to break it. I think that's quite a good point to me. I'm just thinking back in days gone past, I worked BT, and when BT were writing a new voice box, they used to put it into the universities first, because if there's a way to break it, they would find it. So we're working with the UHI and their IT teams to look at what we're doing and not to try to break it, but try to identify any issues that we may miss because we're too close to it.
Okay. Any other reflections? No. Okay, I'm going to go back to you, John.
Yep. So thank you. Couple of points. I know that data is being looked at for the contact sector. One of the projects within this program that's now closed now was putting a new telephone system in there, which gives us a lot more information on number of calls that are lost and some really quite detailed statistics that enable the team there to plan better. Alison will be able to give you a much more detailed answer than I can on that. I know that they got the technology to produce those stats. I know that they will now be looking at, well, how can they change their operations to include performance there. So absolutely putting in place that infrastructure was lining up this project. We use exactly the same tools on the ICT service desk, and it's enabled us to change the times that staff are available, for instance, when the busy times are. So it's been very useful. So I know they're going to be looking at that. But thanks for your support on comments about budgets and so on. I like to think that most of the projects my team are involved in, there is some very strong budget control. Certainly that's the case with this one. Yes, coming in on budget, but actually there have been a number of changes in the project along the way, with additions added in, where we've managed to negotiate good position with the suppliers, so we have stayed on budget. So we're not working with the UHI on this one, but that is actually something I would like to build a better relationship with them. I know working on a website completely outside of the council, I'm involved in, we did work with UHI students, and that was very beneficial. So that is something that I'll look at for learning development and testing. It's a good idea. Okay, everybody. Thanks very much. Are we happy to note the progress update? Thank you very much. On to the final item of today's business before we're going to the workshop. We've only given ourselves 10 minutes, but I'm quite happy to, oh, don't you worry, Debbie, I'm going to extend that, even if it does mean going into the workshop by about 5-10 minutes. So amenities review and roads improvement project 2, item number 6 on your agenda, and we have Debbie Sutton with us.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, members. This report details an update. Better over there, Debbie, for the ones. Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Thanks. Good afternoon. So this report details the amenities review and the roads improvement project updates. Regarding the amenities review, as you will see from Appendix 1 in the report, the APSI report has been received, and the proposed operating model aims to improve cost control, reduce inefficiencies, boost productivity, and ensure fair service delivery across all council wards. Proposal suggests services should be structured around resource allocation, and that reflects asset type, the maintenance frequency, priority tasks, and flexibility based on the LAMS gradings, safety needs, and commercial opportunities, with cost boundary working as it should be, which can improve efficiencies. So we're now at the stage of reviewing the APSI report and developing a model for delivery based on this. I was attending a workshop this morning with the project team and the managers to discuss how we will take this forward, and a further update will be provided on this at the next meeting. With regards to the roads improvement project, this is progressing well, and there's some updates since the writing of the report, which I can update on. So the TTRO software has now gone live with the phased rollout commencing, and a procurement document is currently being prepared for the road defect AI software, hopefully to be issued in the year. For the route optimization software project, market research has been carried out, supplier meetings are well underway, and engagement with additional local authorities is progressing. We have met with all the roads managers, and the waste team have also been consulted to understand their use of similar software. Market research has started for the job card digitalisation project, including internal scoping at staff meetings, engagement with roads, finance, business support, and IT. And requests for information has also gone out through for other local authorities via APSI to understand what systems they currently use. There's also collaboration with business analysts ongoing to support the process mapping and review existing systems to ensure they tie in together. Further work is scheduled for early into the new year to progress the next roads finance discussions, and a roads redesign group workshop will be planned for January with members who are part of that group. As part of the joint project between roads and amenities, we had managed mentors, an external consultancy, who reviewed the road operations in Inverness and Ross and Cromarty. They held interviews with managers and spent 2 weeks working with the frontline teams, assessing their daily work. This initial report has now been received from them, and we will be considering how we take that forward with the senior leaderships. The other joint projects which are moving forward include the new fit-for-purpose asset management system for both roads and amenities, and the digitalisation of the manual job cards. I hope that members are happy to agree the recommendations, and I'm happy to take any questions on the progress to date.
I was expecting a sea of hands there just now, but since Sarah's hands first up, Sarah, and then Trish, and then John.
On the report where it's at the 7.8, it says, you know, maximise the number of local arrangements with clubs and voluntary groups to devolve maintenance of these areas. There's a lot. I mean, as you know, I'm always on about this sometimes locally. There's a lot of scope, I think, to direct funding locally. Maybe talking about just wards and groups to take on some of this maintenance locally, isn't there? To actually, rather than voluntarily doing, to actually have a small budget where somebody local could be paid. I mean, I think that the idea of that thinking is great, and I think it's going to help, because we can't, as we know, we just can't do everything. And people need to know that we can't do everything, and it's quite hard to tell people that we can't do everything when they call us and wonder why such and such hasn't been weeded or ground, whatever. And I think just relying on volunteers is not as reliable as a system of devolved funding to a very, very low level, ward level even, or even village level. So it's great to read that as an idea in this report. Yeah, it's great to see all these things come into fruition. It's just a shame that the working group hasn't met for such a long time. And there is another working group, which Sir John's and I are members of. It's never met. I can't remember what it was called. But it's really good to see that all these things are coming through, and we'll look forward to seeing how well they pan out and helping us with efficiencies.
Thanks for that, Trish. That's what I want to have a quick chat about at the end of this, even though it's not the agenda, but it fully incorporates 4, 5 and 6. The items 4, 5 and 6 on the agenda. John.
Thank you, and thank you again for allowing me to ask some questions today.
You don't have to thank me. This is the different meeting of the council. This is the redesign board, and it is very much friendlier than any other.
Oh, I'm sure.
Especially when I'm in the chair. And they're all going to go back and tell Bill I said that.
Okay, so there's quite a few things I'd just like to pick up on, and the particularly temporary traffic road orders, and I just wondered, some of that legislation is extremely old, 1984, it's 42 years, if my maths serves me correctly, or nearly 41 years. And I wondered, when you're setting up these systems, do you have a better understanding of perhaps more recent statute law, not necessarily on the road side of things, but as, for people and communities and engagement, whether that's part of the system when you're looking at improving your whole thing. I'm going to talk about verges, and it's not very clear, again, in these documents, and also the tree management strategy, the status of trees on the verges. Now, as my understanding is that the roads in the Highlands are adopted, which means that actually the Roads Authority, although they have some kind of maintenance obligations up to the nearest boundary or 3 meters, whichever is the smallest, but the trees on the verge belong to the adjacent landowner. And if you look at particularly the report and paragraph 5.7, it's ambiguous, and I think if moving forward, if we're looking to improve things, we should try and actually spell out exactly the status of trees when it comes to our management strategies on the verge, because there is confusion even in the Roads Authority about what the council can and cannot do. And some of the wording in this report gives the impression that the trees on the verge are actually the council's as an asset, and they're not. They're the adjacent landowner. So I'd just like to make that point. In the report, there's something, I don't know whether this is a deliberate error or what the status is in paragraph 510. They talk about verge control for urban and semi-rural areas and maintaining the grass, but there's no mention of rural areas. So I would not like to see that propagated through when we come and make further improvements to what we're talking about. And finally, I would just like to know how feasible is it to actually get some kind of what's the word, itinerary or whatever of list of all the tree asset which they're talking about. This, it just seems pie in the sky, if I'm totally honest. Thank you.
No bother. Thanks very much for that, John. Are there any other points in the room? John?
Yeah.
You've been awful quiet.
I know.
You okay?
I'm fine.
Good.
You should be thankful.
Yeah, actually, I'm thankful. Yeah.
No, it was just in relation to the workforce planning and also seasonal employees or working arrangements. There's quite a few different suggestions there from what we're presently doing. I've kind of advocated for a number of years that we should have less seasonal employees and more permanent staff, whether they're flexible for summer and winter, but that gives the staff that are then employed full-time employment, which allows them for mortgages and loans and stuff like that. So I'm pleased to see that, but I'm also seeing the bit where it talks about the possibility of working different hours for some seasonal workers and creating a 6-day working week for some, or the option of a 6-day working week, which actually has implications for terms and conditions. So we wouldn't just go straight into that. So we need a lot more discussion around that.
Any other comments? Russell? Sorry? Oh, I'm seeing our hand up. Thanks, Trish now. Russell?
Yeah, thanks for the report, David. Just on the job card digitisation, says you're going to speak to other local authorities. Are you going to speak to like Bear Scotland as well? I mean, they kind of share a yard with the council, and can you see, and they've been digitised for literally years. So I don't know if it's worth speaking to them rather than going to try and reinvent the wheel, maybe, you know. And Trish, it was a framework agreement that we were supposed to do, and that was over 2 years ago, but I don't know what's happened with that.
Thanks very much for that, Russell. Barbara?
Thank you. Regarding the 5.7, I would quite like to know what is the guidance on the whole verges thing and around signage and junctions, because you know we have accident hotspots and things, and Highlands full of trees and whin bushes and things that can grow a few feet within a season, that sometimes the signage is obliterated, especially with whin bushes that are quite fast growing. Is there guidance on how far back that should be cut? And is that Highland Council's um, is that the Highland Council's role to cut that, or is that landowners like Forestry Scotland to maintain that so that it's actually safe near junctions, round signage, and with trees that overhang signage? Sometimes the signage are green and it doesn't reflect when you're coming to it. You can't actually read it till you're up to it. I've even been down in England, they actually wash signs. I don't think we've ever had it here. I think it used to be a thing a few years ago when I queried that before, but some signs do actually just need washed when they're they're literally mossy on them. And the other point about the maintenance of verges, when it's like estate land, farmers' land and things, I believe they're as Duncan mentioned, that they maintain that. Now, their guidance from Nature Scott has changed, that they are to rewild it and let things grow. And then what came out over the Dava fires, when I was speaking to the Codder forestry team, is that the fire jumped the road because the verges weren't cut and there was bushes, whin bushes, trees, because the policy was to encourage this regrowth and rewilding to keep things going. So there needs to be a balance there on fire safety, vision safety, and with our, our ecology policies, because we do want to encourage natural green growth and habitats, but it needs to be on the side of safety. And we're talking millions of pounds of damage as a factor, and lives are at risk going out fighting these fires. So that needs coordinated and maybe liaised with those teams and the fire department.
Thank you very much, Thank you very much, Barbara. Muriel. You there, Muriel? You're on mute, just in case you're blethering away to us.
Sorry, I was. Thank you, Leader. Just bear with me. We've had internet problems today. I agree with Barbara. I think it's important that we do look at junctions. The members down in BNS have had a long-standing issue with junctions, and I think it's 2.5 years ago, Scottish Government allocated extra funding to Highland Council for junctions, and we certainly haven't seen the benefit of that. And when you think of the number of accidents and the footfall or car fall we have, it would be really helpful to get a plan of works for that. Certainly, I've been very impressed with the new junctions at Dromossie, so well done, whoever's done that. Much better visibility in Raigmore as well. I think it's really good news. We've got a tree officer in Highland, but having a single point of contact is a bit of a risk. So is there going to be any local training or dissemination of his knowledge? How is he going to be supported across the whole of Highland? Thank you.
Thanks, Muriel. Any other reflections? Back to you, Debbie.
Thank you very much. Councillor Aitken, your comments were around the added value of groups, and I think that's definitely something we will consider when we're looking at the future operating model for the service and where there are opportunities. What we need to make sure is that there is sufficient work to allow the
budget to pay for that, and that we don't then still have to go to do something else. So sometimes it could involve things like, litter picking or sign repairs, or, it could be lots of little things that they could do in a village that would mean that then we're not sending numerous different teams. So that there's definitely scope, I think, there to look into that. And we have been approached by some groups, and we have that already in some areas, which tour as well. And they're always happy to share their knowledge with other groups as well, which is great. Councillor Robertson, I shall find out about that working framework one. But thank you for your comments about the progress so far. Councillor Edmondson, the Road Scotland Act is still the 1984 version. There have also obviously been updates to it and things like that, but that is still the act that we operate to. But obviously there are supplementary guidance and things like that that is used by the team when we're looking at various different things for developing systems and for the detailed regulations and things like that. The verges and the tree strategy. So there's a lot of discussion around verges all the time, and especially when we're coming into the cutting season and who's responsible for which bits. So we generally don't have the budget now to be able to cut all the verges, so it is based on safety advice. So the junctions, areas around junctions, I think it's 3 meters, like you said, from the junctions from either side will be cut. But it's just about our capacity to be able to do that, and where that's available, we wouldn't cut huge swathes of areas of roadside verge. And trees in the roadside verge are obviously difficult. A lot of them are self-seeded, and it's difficult to maintain those and accurately have an asset list of where they all are. They're obviously a risk to the public if you do go off the road and there's a lot of trees, then that's obviously a risk. So we do need to think about what's reasonable in terms of having a nice roadside, but also the safety and aspects of how we can maintain them with the budgets that we have available to us. You spoke about the tree asset list. So we have just purchased, as part of this whole project, the Easy Tree app, which is for mapping where all the trees are. There's a bit of work to populate that, obviously, and as another member mentioned, we only have one tree officer, so it's a lot of work to do that. We have appointed within the roads team an inspector dedicated just for trees, who'll be working alongside Jason, who's our arbour officer. So he will be working to populate the app with all the details, plus it can take any legacy stuff we have from our ArcGIS mapping, and that's populated in there. So we will be working to develop that asset list, but it's an ongoing process to make sure that that's updated and we've got as much information as we possibly can on all the trees and where they are and who the owners are. With regards to John, I think your question was next about the workforce planning and the seasonals. Yes, that's definitely something we are looking at. We have been speaking between roads and amenities with regards to how best seasonals can be recruited to be permanent members of staff and work partly for amenities and partly for roads as part of the joining together of operations and maintenance and the coming together of those teams. That's all in the discussion. And yes, if we were going to implement any changes with regards to working hours or any of the stuff that was discussed in the APSI report as sort of possible options, and having 6 days a week and things like that, that would obviously involve significant union consultation and staff consultation, and wouldn't be something that we would implement straight away, if at all. So, and it might not be in every area as well. It kind of depends on what's required in different areas. So it's definitely something we're looking at, and we're keen to have not such a reliance on seasonal operatives. It's difficult to recruit. It's a timely process for all the areas to do that. So it would be much better use of time if we could have a dedicated workforce. And that was done 10 years ago when we took on a number of seasonals and made them permanent. So it's something we'll look at as part of the project. Councillor Jones, your question about the digitalisation of job cards. Yes, we're speaking to other local authorities, but also other agencies who operate in a similar manner to us. So Bear and others will be speaking to Tayside contracts as well, who can see what's out there and what they're using and how beneficial it is and how that fits with what we're looking to achieve. Councillor Jarvie was also talking about the verges and the junctions. So yes, there is a bit of a balance to be made between our, what we want to do with regards to rewilding, but also keeping the junctions on the road safe.
and making sure we don't have overhanging trees that can affect our colleagues driving the buses and things like that. So we're looking at trying to keep that the roadside verges as safe as we can within the confines of what we are able to achieve. And I think there has been some discussion with regards to colleagues in the Badenoch area following the fires and what could be done there to better manage that so that there's not that same risk going forward. And the washing of the signs, that's potentially something that our permanent workforce could get on with in the winter if they were looking for work to do. So I can put that into the mix as well. Councillor Coburn, thank you for your comments again as well about the junctions and for recognising, yes, that one tree officer is not sufficient. So we are looking at we have the tree strategy that was developed by colleagues in the environment team, and the next stage is to develop the policy which will go alongside that, which we're hoping to have in the new year and hopefully our next community police committee, possibly in if not in late January, early February, then it will be hopefully in May. I think that was all the questions and comments.
Yeah, you've had quite a few, no matter which project it has been today, and that's us at 3:10. Just before we finish, I would like to, just to comment that in terms of the timelines and the subgroup works and when they're meeting, the dates, what the timelines that we should be seeing being met for each of the redesign board projects, kind of Gantt chart, if you like, but we can take that offline as the chair and vice chairs and what have you, to be able to have a look at that and reflect on how we can better let folks know, because the redesign board has a lot of interest. You can see that there's a lot of non-members of the redesign board, as well as members of the redesign board, who are taking a real interest, no matter whether it's the work of the workshops or the work of the working groups. I really would like them to see just exactly what that progress looks like, and also where there are elements of the redesign work that actually needs to be passed down to the area committees for reflection as well, before it comes as part of the process of looking at it at the redesign board, because a lot of it has local considerations that are different. So can we talk about that? I would very much like if it's the diaries can manage it for these subgroups to all have met before we go on holiday at Christmas time. Now that's going to be your challenge, but these subgroups really should be meeting on a regular basis. I know that some probably are, but Debbie, in your area, I don't think that's been happening at all. So can we have a look at that, John? And thank you very much for your attendance. If you have a quick cup of coffee, and we'll be in here in the next couple of minutes and get cracking with the workshop. Thank you very much, everybody, and thanks everybody online.